Greetings, South Africa. Welcome again to another exhilarating episode on Defense in Focus, your go to podcast for informative, inspirational, and inclusive conversations with regards to defense matters. I'm your host, Major Melchizedek Mjoli, and today we will be discussing something very deep, something meaningful: mental health in the Defense Force. I'm joined today by a beautiful Major Thabiso Msimang, a clinical psychologist in the South African Military Health Service, but in the nutshell, the Defense Force. Good day, Major.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Tell us, who is Major Thabiso Msimang?
Major Thabiso Msimanga is a clinical psychologist in the DoD, as you mentioned, from Mafikeng, a small town in the northwest. I'm sure you're aware of that. Yes. I joined the military in 2020 after studying for clinical psychology at the University of Pretoria. So I joined as a civilian, absorbed within the organization, stationed and placed at Lowatla, CTC, where that is where my career in the organization began. But I'm currently now stationed at one military hospital.
Now, clinical psychology. I believe it something that you grew up wanting to become? Because I think when you ask young ones what do you want to be when you grow up, they'll a policeman, a doctor. Why clinical psychology?
My interest in clinical psychology was sparked in high school. You know, when you have career expose and different professionals join and they inform or educate about the different career perspectives. And that is where that was the first time I heard about clinical psychology. Then it sparked my interest. I understood it's mental health, severe pathology, assessing, diagnosing, intervening. And that is when I started now gaining interest, started researching and so forth. And I saw this is what I wanted to do.
Major, knowing that there are 5 elements in terms of psychology, clinical psychology, what is clinical psychology?
Clinical psychology is the body of psychology that looks at severe mental pathology. So you screen, diagnose, and treat mental health pathologies within a clinical setting.
Okay. And in terms of that clinical synergy in the Defense Force, how is it like?
With regards to
clinical psychology,
we do see severe pathology within the organization, so there is definitely a place for clinical psychologists. For example, like I said, we deal with severe pathology, diagnosable conditions such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, substance use disorder. We see all of that within the DoD. Yes.
Well, if I bring it back home on myself, I think I have been subjected, or should I say, being affected mentally, being diagnosed with severe depression. And we all talk about the stigma around it. And us, in particular men, speaking about depression, which is part of mental health, do you see more cases of depression in the Defense Force?
Yes, we do. We do definitely see a lot of cases, depression cases within the organization. As opposed to whether it is more compared to outside of the organization, I wouldn't know, but we do have cases of depression within the organization.
And is it related in terms of external or within their daily living? Or have we noticed a lot of mental health cases with our recent DRC deployments or any other deployments in the DoD?
It is not isolated to post-deployment. We do have people within our internal operations that also experience depression.
The 10th of October, we saw ourselves observing the mental health awareness, and October being the Mental Health Awareness Month. Tell us, what is mental health?
When we talk about mental health, we're looking at different factors. So it refers to an individual's psychological, emotional, and social well-being. So we're looking at how a person feels, thinks, behaves, how they relate to other people, how they are within relationships, how they are within the work environment. So your mental health will then determine how you respond to stress, work-life challenges, and so forth.
And is it something that you have observed? Are our soldiers in a good space in terms of mental health? I know it's a very huge, broad question. However, when you look at society today, it's a topic or it's discussions about mental health that we are having. Are we having such discussions in the Defence Force?
I think with the platforms that we have now, there is a big shift. We're having more conversations around mental health, but I think we can do more. We can spread the word more. We can have more open dialogue around it.
Okay. We're looking now. I had an opportunity to converse with the new MSDS members that came in, and for them, it's a mind shift. It's a new environment. And some will cite, hey, I'm away from my family for a period of time. We are moved left, right, and center. Do you see such, or what measures are there to mitigate those circumstances, not to lead to mental health?
And you're right, it is a big adjustment,
yes,
joining into this environment and military culture and so forth. But there are psychologists who do engage with the MSDSs so as to see and assess where they might need assistance or intervention.
Okay. Now, in terms of career, I book myself or in a mental institute, or should I say, I see a psychiatrist, for argument's sake. Does that hinder my progression in the Defence Force in terms of my mental health?
That's a valid reality for a lot of people. The fear that seeking treatment or seeing a psychologist will have an impact on their career. So you have individuals who now fear that it's going to affect their deployment, promotion, and so forth. So it is a valid feeling, it is a valid concern. We're not here to invalidate anyone's reality. But my main point is it might be influenced by misconception. Do you understand? People believing that going to a psychologist will taint your career. Whereas, and because of that, people who are struggling do not seek treatment early on. Mm-hmm. So what they do they will self-medicate.
Correct.
You understand? Adopt coping mechanisms, in most cases maladaptive coping mechanisms, thinking that it was going to help. But what that does, it piles up. The problem becomes more. And that, in the end, is what affects your career. Whereas had you seen a psychologist or sought treatment early on, we would have intervened and made sure that you are operationally ready. Our role as psychologists within the organization is to not only ensure that you're physically fit, but to also emphasize the importance of mental health and how that contributes to operational readiness.
If one could also surmise, there is an issue of cultural diversity where one will see themselves weak to consult a psychologist. And I'm still adamant that are we doing enough to close that gap?
I think that links to the stigma, that links to public stigma, internalized stigma, which then refers to negative attitudes or beliefs or discrimination towards people with mental health problems. So when we refer to the internalized stigma is when now the individual starts believing this. Do you understand? Believing that I am indeed weak, seeking help almost communicates that I am not a good enough soldier. Now we bring it back to our context here, looking at the military culture, like you mentioned earlier on. When we talk about culture, what is culture? Shared values, shared belief system that are passed from one generation to the next. Now we bring it back again and we contextualize it to the military. What are the shared values and beliefs that seniors or even instructors or long-standing soldiers pass on from one generation to the next, that were values that were also instilled in them. And the most prominent one is that emotional expression is a sign of weakness.
Correct.
You understand?
Yeah.
So if I have that internalized stigma, and I indeed believe that struggling emotionally is a sign of weakness, I'm not going to seek treatment.
I think also when we look at that, we look at our workplaces. That's a very touchy one because we spend most of our time at work, and one deals with themselves mentally in terms of the different characters and behaviors of people. And do you get more cases of people that have challenges mentally, emotionally in the workplace?
Yes, we do.
And
Yes,
how do
in
you
essence,
assist
where
them?
people struggle with work-related stress. Do you understand? It could be because they're also struggling with personal matters, and it is now compounded with stress at work. Now, coming to seek therapy, that is where we now unpack where the problem lies, and we capacitate you with the resources so that you can now withstand whatever challenges you have within the workplace.
Okay. Because we are soldiers, post-traumatic stress. They are coming back from deployment, going back home. Where do we fill the gap to prepare them to go back home?
There are programs, for instance, during the demobilization where psychologists do provide debriefing, counseling services, and within that space, individuals who do require further intervention are then given a referral to follow up. So therapy, in essence, is a continuous process. So even when they are back from DRC, it is advised that they seek counseling at their home units. They are given referrals for that, and within that space, they are assisted with the symptoms of trauma that they are faced with. Also not neglecting the family as well, you understand, because like I said, mental health affects how you relate to other people. So it will show up within the family system, it will show up within your unit. And even that is where now we do not isolate the families. You know, so so the service is available to families and members of the organization.
Now, when we speak about a continuous consultation, we are in the Defense Force where we are placed in different units and we move around, and not like the civilian sector where you will see your specific psychologist. And I am now fond of you. Then it becomes hard for me now to share my story to another individual or psychologist rather. How is that then measured? Yeah.
And you're right, because you do form a therapeutic relationship.
Correct.
You know, you do form a connection. But within that space, you know, we prepare the member or the patient in that regard for possible termination. We prepare them for the transition from one psychologist to the next. And remember, we do also communicate with fellow psychologists. So when referring someone, you don't just throw them to wherever they're going. It is a process, and it is a collaborative process with the patient as well. You know, so we navigated through the process of open communication, transparency with the patient. If they're struggling with the process of termination, you also contain it. You provide that holding environment. If there's a need for reframing, you do that for them as well. But unfortunately, within this organization, we do have situations where therapy might be transferred from one psychologist to the next. It is our reality.
To our viewers that are currently with us, right, what can you say in terms of a young one wanting to pursue a career in clinical psychology? Is it a career of choice?
It is. It is definitely a difficult journey. To qualify to become a psychologist, you have to go through undergrad up until master's, do your internship. If you want to become a clinical psychologist, we add on with community service. You have to also pass your board exam. The most difficult part is also getting into masters. So the selection process can be a bit strenuous for people. You have to sometimes try more than once. It is possible. You see it with us. We're here, you know. Is it easy? No. Is it possible? Definitely. So I would encourage anyone interested to pursue psychology.
As we close, tell me, what are the urgent steps that the Defense Force can take to mitigate or to assist in terms of mental health?
I think the first one would be to encourage access to knowledge, because if we believe that people aren't seeking treatment, if I do not know that I'm struggling with depression or that what I am struggling with is depression, I'm not going to seek treatment. So I think access to information, psychoeducation programs, informing people what is depression, what is anxiety, what is PTSD, almost knowing or informing them what to look out for. And secondly, the most important one as well is to have an open dialogue, to have open conversations around mental health. Because if we don't talk about something, if something is swept under the carpet, what does it communicate? It's shameful, right? So communicating that whatever it is you're struggling with is embarrassing, it is shameful. And what does that do? It further perpetuates the internalized stigma. Then you indeed do believe I am weak, I am different, and therefore I shouldn't speak up. So people end up struggling in isolation. So what the open dialogue would then foster for us will move from isolation to shared experience. We will almost emphasize the humanity that comes with mental health struggles. You understand? That shared experience as well. So we're shifting from it is your problem to shared responsibility. Let's do something about it. Another important thing as well is encouraging our leaders to allow and to speak freely, allow individuals to speak about mental health challenges and for themselves as well to speak openly about mental health challenges. You understand? Because if we associate strength with the rank, we can also see vulnerability. And what does that do? If my senior is comfortable with vulnerability, why can't I do it?
I think that is the case because you will see, for example, your Surgeon General, you think that the general is stressless. And it's a stressful environment. And it starts with them. Filtering it down to the members.
And I think also sending out the message that it's okay to be human. You understand? You might be wearing the uniform, but behind that is a human being that needs sometimes to be assisted and helped.
Well, there you have it, South Africa. Thank you very much, Major Msimang. It has been an honor and a privilege to have such discussions as youthful as we are. It is an eye-opener to the public at large. South Africa, it is okay to be not okay. And there are platforms for us to talk about it. It is okay to be ashamed because no one is perfect. There's Major Msimang. She's readily available to assist where you think there is no way for you to pull through. There are platforms, and I believe the Defence Force will make available all what she has indicated now to assist members in all type of traumas, all type of depressions. Mental health is real, and let's talk about it. And that's another episode of Defence in Focus. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll take it from there. I'm your host, Major Melchizedek Mjoli.